All right, so we have Robin Ryan with us, who is a best-selling author of 8 books, including 60 Seconds and You're Hired. Great title on that one, as well as Winning Resumes, another great title, especially if you are looking right now. And you're a career counselor, Robin. You've personally helped thousands of people to land new jobs, and probably many, many thousands beyond that who have read your columns in places like Forbes.
Oh, yeah, hundreds
I've
of
been reading
thousands
you a
there.
lot, and I just had to bring you in because I mean, I hear from people all the time who say that they are really struggling in this job market right now, but there are some real opportunities out there.
Well, the thing people are not doing is they're not looking at the job market that we have today.
Hmm.
They're thinking about what I used to do, and many industries got devastated. The airlines industry, the hospitality industry, if you are an event planner, it's going to be a long time for some of those jobs to come back. And so when I'm talking to those people, because many of them are saying, hey, I had a high paying job, but it's
Mhm.
gone now. And you can't just wait forever. Think about this. In the last year, you could have been getting new skills. You could have been, moving in a whole new direction, because a lot of these people have to pivot. There are many jobs that are just not going to come back, and they're not going to come back fast. So by pivoting, you look at, what skills do I have? What kind, like for example, well, I can manage people. Well, that goes from one job to the other. But maybe you need to take a class. Maybe project management would be a good area for you to move into. So do some research, go online, look at your skill set, start looking outside your industry and saying, what am I missing? Talk to people who work in those industries and try to determine, how can I make a change? Because too many people are sending out, bad resumes, they've got bad LinkedIn profiles, and they're like, I don't understand why nobody's calling.
I will admit to you, I thought that, my resume looked okay. I thought that my LinkedIn profile was good. And after I read some of these tips that you put out there, I think I'm throwing all this away and I'm going to rebuild
Start
this
it over.
from the ground up, because sometimes you build it for you. You're not really thinking about your audience. Your audience is made up of people who you want to perhaps hire you someday. You've got to think about what they are looking for, and it might be very different from what you think of yourself and you think of your skills.
Well, the let's take that apart too. The resume has to get through an applicant tracking system. That's really hard for a lot of people. And there are things you can't do: no headers, no footers, no text boxes, no colored ink, no columns, so it, it can't look, quote unquote, creative and
Yes.
pretty, because the ATS system will not be able to read it. So
And
that won't help
those are
you.
going to be the first things that see your resume, and there may never be a human who sees it if it kicks it
That's right.
out.
Absolutely. So if we want to get to the recruiter and hiring manager, it's got to also do a couple other things. It has to have keywords, and those are really your work tasks. Those are the job functions. Employers want to see the results you achieved. They do not want you to copy the ad and paste the job ad inside the resume and say, I'm good. You're not good. They're looking to hire you based on what you've achieved. The other mistake I think people make is they're applying for way too many things that they are not qualified for.
Mhm.
If it says 5 to 7 years of experience and you have one, that's too far of a reach.
Mhm.
If it said 3 years of experience and you had 1.5 to 2, I would go for it. So being more targeted in the places that you look, and making sure that you're addressing the skills properly that employer is looking for, customizing it.
So I want to ask you a little bit, when you say that you should talk about your achievements. I think that we're all taught to be so humble, and we tend to get into a resume and we write this long description of the things that we have done at this company, maybe a few times that we've been promoted, but we all have done things in our workplaces that
Right.
have saved the workplace money, that have made the employer money. Those are things you want to talk about because every employer cares about those things.
Absolutely. So my formula is this: what were your actions and what was the result?
Hmm.
Like, I reorganized the company's database filing system, and the results saved 20 hours a week. So anytime you can quantify it, did you save time? Did you save money? Did you start something new? Did you create something? Right. And so saving time, making money, saving money, all of these results are what they're interested in seeing. Created a new training program that was taught to, 10,000 employees is a very big accomplishment, as opposed to, yes, I've created a training program.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see the difference, that it's the magnitude, sometimes those numbers, we can't quantify everything, but we can quantify quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. And the most important accomplishments first. Don't just write them down randomly. Do the important one first, and then the next most important second.
Does the same sort of thing hold for LinkedIn? Because so many employers are going to find you there, and I'm amazed sometimes by people who say that they're looking for a job, and I ask something about their LinkedIn profile and they don't have one.
Yeah, that's a huge mistake. We know 95% of all recruiters spend at least an hour or longer every day on LinkedIn looking for talent. So if you're not there, you're missing a big opportunity. What I see, and in the last year, I probably wrote 600 LinkedIn profiles. I mean, every day. It was like 2 a day. Resumes, I was so busy. And the mistakes that I see, people don't pay attention to having a professional looking photo. They use for their headline, which is the most searched part of LinkedIn. This is where you could have different job titles and any special certifications. They just use the default, which is the current job title that they may have. So, Tech One doesn't tell anybody very much, but, if you were a technical assistant working in databases like Oracle, that tells us a whole lot more. The other thing about LinkedIn is that people just didn't realize how important it is. And employers are checking you out, recruiters check you out. But if you are a professional, people that are doing business are checking you out. Salespeople are checking you out. Potential clients are checking you out. If you lead an organization, you've got an executive position, future employees are checking you out. So this is not a place to have a skeleton of a profile. This is a place to spend the time and really polish that up. Put your skills in there, write about yourself in terms of your personality, and make sure that that work experience lists some accomplishments.
And we want to see you. We want to see a good professional picture of you. I'm amazed at how many people will try to connect on LinkedIn and they have no profile picture. And it's like, come on,
Yeah.
this is 101,
Yeah, no, people, that's a huge mistake. And the quality of the pictures, plain background, smiling, warm, engaging face. This isn't very good. Okay. It's not engaging. Your smile's what we want to see. Think about it. If you were sending this out, to a colleague and they were going to do it and you're supposed to be like a speaker or something, they want you to look engaging. People want to talk to you. Both young people and old people. The young people, do not pick a picture from somebody's wedding. It's obvious you're at somebody's wedding and stick it in there. We can do just a collared shirt. That's perfect. You don't have to be in a suit for LinkedIn. But the other thing I see, so nothing sexy. Some of these young people, sexy does not work.
Right.
Some of the old people have pictures up there that are about 15 years old. Nobody would recognize them now.
Yes.
Sorry, folks, I'm old too. And you know what? We got to put something current on the TV.
That is hilarious.
And that means LinkedIn, think about it. It's the same thing with your profile. If they meet you, they are going to be like, that doesn't look like her, because it's too old.
So let's say that your LinkedIn profile, you've updated that some, you've updated your resume some, or maybe you haven't in all of these months, and you're still holding on, as you said, to sort of this narrow view of what kind of jobs you're going to apply for. Is that why so many people have been reaching out saying, I lost a high paying job, I can't find other high paying work? Is that why it's happening, or are there other things at play there?
No, there's a lot of factors. One is the industry. As I said, some of the industries got devastated. That's one thing. Some is where people are located. Maybe that company in that region got hit hard. Distribution companies got hit really hard. I mean, places where people don't think. When you start talking to them, you're surprised, like, oh, I never thought that your industry would get hit hard. So broadening your search. Also keep in mind, most people can work remote now.
Hmm.
And so if you're looking for an opportunity, LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, they all let you put in the keyword remote. I don't even put that word in.
Hmm.
I just put United States to look at the job listings. And here's why. I know that if it's a fairly, decent sized company, they're going to let you work from home.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to get moved in 2021. There's no relocation happening in 2021. So you can broaden out your search. You can look outside of your typical marketplace where you might live now, and that opens up a lot more job opportunities. Also, one other big tip, write a cover letter, stand out. That needs to be very specific. It needs to be effective. You need to write about, number one, open with your strengths. What do you bring to the job? I've got 10 years of experience leading teams, writing, blah, blah, blah. And then highlight some of the duties that they ask for to say, yes, I've got those. But it's something people aren't doing to stand out. And then if we have a little more time,
Oh
I
yeah.
got to tell you what they're doing wrong on interviewing because they're
I have
making
time for this
so many
because this is
mistakes.
important. This is all important.
Well, the mistakes that are happening when they get to the interview, it's because it's on Zoom. People are so nonchalant. They don't care. They didn't prep. They're just like, oh, yeah, I'm in a meeting. Okay. Well, guess what? I worked with a guy last week. This is a executive, okay? Gone through 10 different interviews at 10 different companies, lost every one of them.
Hmm.
As soon as I got online with him to do our interview coaching, I could see why. Cold,
Huh.
frozen, distant. His presentation was so poor.
Hmm.
You've got to be thinking about that. Also, too, he babbled. He went on and on and on in an answer. Nobody's listening after about a minute. So
Is that
prepare for that
harder?
interview.
Is that
Pardon me?
harder now, do you think, Robin?
Yes, it's
Because,
harder. It's
we
harder.
used to get nervous. We used to get nervous because we
Oh,
had to
yeah.
get nervous because we're walking into someone else's turf. We're going into their building, into their office, sitting in front of them. We know we have to make this appearance. Now we might be, in lounge pants that they can't see with a
That's
nice
right.
shirt on in our own home, and we tend to get too comfortable. But now we're trying to come across two-dimensionally on this flat screen, and it's really hard to get your personality across and to really sell yourself as well as maybe you were able to do in person.
Prepping the questions, role playing, setting up, you can set up a sample Zoom call with a friend. And so you can role play on the screen. I mean, when I do my sessions with my clients, they are 90 minutes and we are role playing questions. It's
Hmm.
recorded just like this is, so they can play it back. I can do that. They can do that themselves. Write out answers to the questions.
Hmm.
You stopped preparing. Um, think about the hard ones. Why do you want to leave your job? What do you know about us? You'd be amazed how many people say, well, what I saw in the ad,
Oh,
that's
geez.
not going to impress anybody.
Yeah.
You
And,
have to
and,
be able to be articulate.
and how important is it when you say write out some potential answers to questions? Don't memorize them. Don't memorize
Don't
your
memorize them.
answer.
No, correct.
Just be familiar with it because
Familiar
otherwise you're
with
going to
it.
get snagged on it and
Think
mess it up.
about it in advance. The other thing is many employers ask situational questions.
Hmm.
Tell us about a time you had to work with a difficult coworker. Tell us about a time you had to do this or that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Explain to us why you chose to lead this project. Tell us about a mistake that you made that your boss corrected you on. So these are things where you've got to think of what we call work examples. And people really have a hard time with that.
Hmm.
You have to, like you do, tell the story. Who's involved? Where is it? What is the problem? Outline what you did and then draw the conclusion. What's the solution? They won't get it. You've got to be able to do all of that in less than 60 seconds.
Hmm.
So those stories have really got to be written out and prepared in advance. And you need several of them. More and more employers are asking situational questions. The other thing that people don't like right now is it's taken 8 interviews to get hired.
Hmm.
Used to be you could go in, you'd see them, you might talk to several different people in the course of a day. Very few companies are setting up multiple Zooms at one time. What's happening is I talk to the recruiter, then I talk to a manager, then I talk to this person in department and that person. And what people are complaining about is it can take 6 to 8 interviews to land the job. And imagine going through 6 to 8 interviews and you don't land the job. So you really want to do your best. Think too about what's behind you. It's amazing to me how many people have unmade beds behind them. I mean, you got kids running around making noise. You got to concentrate and focus, because here's what they're thinking. How I see you now, when I look at your screen, I see, a background and whatever. That's what customers are going to be looking at. That's what our other people, our other employees are going to be looking at. And so, and I absolutely, my own son is 23 years old. He, is on his 3rd COVID job because they keep disappearing. Wow. But he, he's working in his little apartment. He's got a bedroom. And I said to him, make sure you hide that bed. Set up that computer so they don't see that. And when we went over there, you'd be amazed how many people do not think that through. They're too casual. And you know what? This is still business. Don't be too casual or somebody else is going to get hired.
And I even like that you made the distinction in one of your columns about don't necessarily go with that fake background that maybe Zoom will allow you to go with, because it's just not perfected yet. It is cool, but it's not perfected yet. And when you move, everybody sees your dirty bed because, it didn't completely block it out. But how important is the technical? How important is the technical aspect? Because I can't tell you how many interviews I have done where, admittedly, I didn't plug in to the Ethernet. So my Wi-Fi kind of comes and goes and freezes up. I can't tell you how many I've done where the lighting has been terrible on the other end. You're trying to make out a face, or you can't hear them very well because the microphone, the computer microphone is just terrible when, maybe a $40 microphone might really make a big difference.
Right. Absolutely. And if you're doing it on your laptop, the quality of the sound might not be very good. So practice. You can put Zoom on your phone and talk to yourself. Okay. And hear, how do I sound? And does it sound okay? What I tell everybody when you're getting ready to start the interview, first place, especially if you are over 50, absolutely understand the technology, know what platform you're going to work on. If it's a brand new platform and you have not done it before, say, I've done Zoom and I've done some others, but WebEx here I haven't done before. And make sure you understand how to, make sure that the microphone's on and that you're clear and that they can see you. Lighting, I will tell people, I use a light ring. And you might have to put a lamp on like this side of your face. I've got a big window here. That's why this is a little bit brighter. But I light this part up with a light ring so that my whole face, because if you're just looking and you're only seeing the dark part, that's not very engaging. And so you have to think through some of these other factors that people don't think through. People over 50, the last thing in the world you got to do is, I don't know how to turn this on. I don't know how to find the video. I can't do this. I can't do that. You give off the worst possible impression of an absolute technology dinosaur. You're not going to get hired if they think you're a dinosaur because so right. We're doing all the work this way. So, and I will tell you, I see that a lot.
Do we forget don't we forget to smile too? Whereas, if we're in person with somebody, I think it comes much more naturally. I think we kind of forget that a little bit when we're looking at a camera and a computer here.
Right. And here's, I have a little cheat tip. Not only do you need to smile, take a Post-it note, put them around your monitor. One should have a smile. The others can have little tips about answering some of the questions, like, what's your strength? And you've got one written down. What's your weakness? You put a keyword or two there so that way you're still looking at the camera. You still got good eye contact, because here's what happens. You ask me a question and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. Then I'm over here and I'm over here. And in video, like this connection, you just broke the connection with the hiring manager or the employer. Big mistake. So focus on them. Like I said, those Post-it notes help you cheat. Your resume may be down here, but you shouldn't be reading it. You
Mm.
should know that information.
Yeah, it's your history. I mean, you should know it by then. But that's a very interesting thing about do not break the eye contact with
Right.
somebody, because once you do, you almost look like you're disinterested.
And unconfident, and maybe you can't
Mm.
do this. From an employer standpoint, here's what they're telling me. Here's why they're having such a hard time. We can't meet you. We can't see you in real life. You're not coming in. How do we know you're going to really show up and do the job? How do we know that you know who you really are? Which is why there's multiple appointments in interviewing. Um, I I had the first one in quite a while. Actually, was required to go in for the interview in person, and it went a lot better. Except for when he got there, he said, they had me behind like a plastic wall, and they wanted me to keep my mask on. I said, please tell me you took the mask off. And he said, yes, I'm behind this plastic wall. And he goes, I realized that I need to take the mask off. And he said, because I did a meeting like that once before and I realized I bombed.
Mm.
And so, so you have to really think things through.
What a different landscape it is right now,
Yeah,
though, and it's like
it's been
everything
hard.
has changed. I love hearing your perspective, though, because you speak with people who are looking, and you know people who are hiring, and
Right.
these hiring managers. It's interesting that you give their perspective here. They've got a lot of fear in this too, and this is all new to them as well
Yeah.
right now, and so they may not be totally on their A game as they're looking. So you've really got to do that better job of selling yourself.
You have to be effective. I have a technique I call the 60-second sell. It's how I open my interviews and close the interviews.
Hmm.
It takes your 5 top selling points, you link them together in a couple sentences. And then when they say, tell me about yourself, you do not start out and say, well, I was born in Oklahoma. And 20 minutes later, you got to Dallas. You start out with, for the last 5 years, I have been a marketing product manager working for a small tech company. Boom. That's what they're looking for. That's the experience that you're bringing. So you open more powerfully. You really have to think through, how do I convince them I'm the right person to hire? And if you can use a little vocal variety, if you can move around a tiny bit so you don't look frozen and cold,
Hmm.
because the hiring manager, I'll give you an idea. This hiring manager complained to me the other day and said, okay, I want help. And I said, okay, you're looking for a job? He goes, no, I'm trying to hire. And I think you can help me get better. And
Hmm.
I said, okay, that's different, but I do, I have done it in the past. So I was like, all right. And as soon as we got online, I realized that, you know, he said, I guess I don't know how to ask them the right questions because we're hiring them. They come in, it's a sales job in a small tech company, and they got to get on the phone. And these millennials will not get on the phone. They don't want to talk on the telephone. And he said,
Yes.
that's like 90% of the job, talking on the phone. And I said, well, you should be asking a lot of questions about talking on the phone. Give me examples and blah, blah, blah. And so, he had gone through like 6 different hires that hadn't worked out. And he went on to say, do you know how expensive it is on our end? How much time it takes me from my job? I got to start training these people. We put all this effort into them and they don't work out. We let them go within a couple of weeks as soon as we realize that
Hmm.
they're not going to do the work as we need it. So when you're applying for these jobs, make sure you ask good questions. Ask that employer, what would the daily duties be? The
Hmm.
person who had the job before me, what did they do well, and what area did they need to improve on? In the first 6 months, what 3 things have to be accomplished so that you'll know and I'll know that I've succeeded?
Hmm.
You want to be on the same page.
And you want to ask questions in an interview as the interviewee.
Absolutely. Write them down. This is your chance to learn about them. It's interesting. People tell me, I want a job, I want a job, I want a job. I had a client who had been interviewing a lot of different places, had not had success. That's why he came. We worked together. He lands the job and he says, it's not a good place for my family to move, so I'm not taking it. And I
Wow.
thought,
After all
okay,
that?
yeah, after all that. And so it's like, okay, I'd have taken it for now. But,
Robin, how do you address the void in the resume? So many people have been laid off. So many people
yes.
have been through several jobs during the pandemic, and I think that they think of that as like a scarlet letter, this curse that they have to somehow paper over on their resume. What do you do about that?
You don't. We did a survey of hiring managers, and so did several of the larger, Indeed, and a lot of those places, Sherm, a lot of them did it. And I think it was like 96% said we would never hold it against anybody if they lost their job because of COVID. I mean, industries got devastated. Everybody went home. It was a it was a pandemic, and it impacted the workplace in ways that it never ever has before.
Mm-hmm.
So, employers, they're more interested in two things. What did you used to do? And what did you do in the last year to stay current?
Hmm.
While sitting around, I didn't do anything, because that's what most people say. Well, nothing. I was looking for a job. Well, did you take any classes? Did you read any books? Did you go online? Did you join groups? Did you go to the Professional Trade Association, read the stuff that they have there? They're looking to see how you have stayed up to date. And if you don't have a good answer for that, start doing some of those activities. They're
Reverse
important.
engineer it, basically.
Yep. And lastly, network. Use the people that you do know and talk with them. Find out, is your company hiring? Do you know anybody who works at such and such a company if it's high on your list? If you find that you see an opening, say, for example, there's an opening, and we'll just call it the ABC company, then look at your LinkedIn list. Does anybody work there? If you find somebody, say, I just applied for this job at the ABC company. I was hoping you'd be willing to pass my resume along to HR. Only 7% of applicants come in as a referral, but 43% of them get hired.
Wow.
So your chances of landing the job has gone up dramatically, and you're guaranteed to be seen. Okay, so if someone inside the company or a friend of a friend inside the company sends the resume along, human eyes are going to look at it. Whereas in the applicant tracking system, you could get lost forever.
Mm-hmm. I have two more questions for you. You talked about the guy who, has been to 10 interviews and didn't get the job on any of them. That's one thing if you're not getting the job after you've made it to the interview process, because clearly you're doing something wrong in presenting yourself. If you never even get to the interview, the chances are, perhaps you're applying for jobs that you are not qualified for on one hand, but is it a pretty good indication if you're not getting any calls, any interviews, that there's something going wrong with your resume or your LinkedIn profile or both?
Absolutely. The resume is the problem.
Okay.
And if you've waited months and you're just figuring that out, do something about it now. So my first suggestion is you can go, I write for Forbes, Robin Ryan, Forbes. If you type that in on Google, my list of, 600 articles will come up. There's a lot there. You can read those for free. And the key things, though, are going to be, is it getting through the applicant tracking system? Probably not. So you're doing something wrong. Maybe, like you said, you use columns or text boxes or tables, and those aren't going through. You may not have the right keywords. By that I mean the work tasks, the things that you've done. For example, you researched, or you did project management, or you're doing data entry, or whatever the tasks are. The work tasks have to be listed there, but the resume needs help. And the other thing I will warn people is, when COVID happened, a lot of graphic designers and unqualified people put out their shingle and says, hey, I'm a resume writer. It don't cost very much, and I'll do it for you. And you have invested $300, $400, $500 only to find that this isn't worth the paper it's printed on. And so if you get professional help, you look very, very carefully at those people's qualifications before you elect to pay to have somebody help you.
It would have been a lot cheaper to buy winning resumes on Amazon,
well,
wouldn't it?
And the community colleges often offer free assistance, and they offer free classes. So if you have community colleges in your state, that's one good resource to look at, where you could take a resume writing class, which would be a couple-hour class, and that would help you.
Even unemployment offices have that here in Texas. The Texas Workforce Solutions has that, and
that's right.
It's a vital thing. My last question, because I know your time is valuable. So many people, I think, right now think that now is such a terrible time to look, that things are just so out of sorts. But in fact, I was reading your column not long ago, earlier this month, and it quoted the Ladders, which is a job site that
Yep.
specializes in, higher paying jobs, saying that there are actually more six-figure positions available right now, significantly more available
Yeah.
now than there were pre-pandemic. So I just like to kind of end on that note of hope for people who say, I can't seem to replace this income that I lost. There are jobs out there.
There's jobs out there. I'm watching my clients get hired. They're getting interviews. So if you're not having success, look at the process. Go spend some time to understand, how do I job hunt in 2021? It's not the same as it was, 7, 8, 10 years ago. And and make sure that you're doing everything you can. Your LinkedIn is the best it can be, that you have the good headline in there, that you've got a good resume, that you know how to answer those questions, that you're networking, that you're telling people that you're looking, and you're telling them what you're looking for. But we're seeing the numbers go up. One thing I will say about the higher level figures, remember, a lot of people also lost jobs. So as we see those jobs that coming back, I think that accounts for some of the numbers that we're seeing. But hiring is better, hiring is happening, but you have to take responsibility for yourself. And if you're not having success, change that.
It might
Look
be
at what you're
something.
doing wrong and do something else.
It may be something kind of simple too that's holding you
Okay?
back.
The
Uh,
things we talked about today.
Robin, Ryan, this has been fascinating. I hope this helps some people out, although I do feel a
So
little
do I.
bit guilty because I feel like I've kept maybe three of your clients from getting jobs today by keeping you for this long. I know that this is a long interview, but really, thank you very much. I really hope this helps some people out.
I'm glad to be here. Good luck
Robin,
to everybody.
Robin, thank you.